This is the Between Extraordinary Part 12. Let's do a little bit of recapping. So, you currently have two active threats because one of the threats, the creature of Cromorn Gardens, is now a servant of Jizad. For since you weren't here last time, Mike, um, I was not scamming the group. I actually decided this very late in the session, but the what happened is Jazad anticipates Atlantis getting involved in whatever he's doing, and so he has Sven is now his Manchurian candidate among said Atlanteans. So that's what's going on there. Although Hargrave House doesn't know that, but that's something we know as players. Um, so the creature of Cromwell Gardens is no longer a thing we have to worry about right now. We do have two other active threats, though, the Emerald Orchid and the Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island. Now, the Emerald Orchid, you still have not made a ton of progress on. This is the one where there's this faddish green orchid that has led to a further, like, sort of fad in botany in the city. And we believe that the orchid is taking over people and controlling them. We've only seen subtle signs of this so far, though. This has been kind of in the background threat, but I think it's going to become a lot more prominent pretty soon. You did a lot of progress on the new threat, which is the Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island, the somewhat misnomered Monochromatic Men of Three Mills Island, because indeed there are monochromatic women as well who are victims at Three Mills Island. Basically, bodies are turning up around this little island in this particular river, where the island itself is a series of like three mills that do various things and have done various things over time. The bodies, importantly, are perfectly monochromatic in color, like crayon blue and red and green. Because Hargrave House has access to an ancient tome called the Almanac of the Hyades, they know that there's something going on connected to a ritual that will open up some kind of portal above Three Mills Island. They've determined that much. And what will happen when the portal opens, who knows? What is the exact nature of what's going on here? It's not precisely known. Indeed, one of your questions is who wants to open a portal and why? The other is how does the ritual work? These are different ways of resolving the threat. But you've got a lot of clues. You got 7 clues on this already on a complexity 6 or 8. So that one's like pretty teed up. And that's sort of where we're at with the active threats. Jazad, currently you have 6 mastermind clues on Jazad. I'm moving this along at a pretty rapid clip in order to let these characters resolve Jazad. Though certainly there's another way of running this where they're not being given out as quickly, and a new Hargrave Jazad would defeat this version of Hargrave House, and then Hargrave House, a new hunters would have to do it. That is also legit, but for YouTube purposes, I want to do it this way. And so that's sort of where things sit with the bigger picture. If we take a look at the hunters, right now, Lady Florence is wanted for questioning. I don't recall what that is in regards to, Lady Florence. Do you?
The murders at the bowling hall.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah. And then Ms. Balakwa has Most Beloved. This is playing itself out in many ways. Albertina Welk has had a focus on Ms. Balakwa. Jizad's daughter Tunara is into Ms. Balakwa. The Man in the Sun Mask has a thing with Ms. Balakwa. There are, of course, all the various dark entities and demons, and so Ms. Balakwa is the focus of attention, as she should be with the Most Beloved. Mr. Constantine is marked by the Slugger, and he's probably marked by the Slugger repeatedly and on a regular basis, and as well as marked by the Star Beast. Now, we don't know what the Star Beast is, but we know it's connected to Three Mills Island. And then for Jakob, we have London is very different than Wales, a condition we've gotten a lot of mileage out of, and marked by Jazad, because Jazad now knows you're the Martian, even though you haven't quite put it together yet. He knows. And so that's what's going on with conditions and characters. Does anyone have any questions or want to add anything or be reminded of something before we begin? Very well, then. Let's click over to the day phase, and I will present a new threat, a third threat. If you want to follow along with me, it's on the tab. Now, in this campaign, there is um, a Venusian vessel hovering over the city. We have threats of very alien and bizarre nature. We have more of an emphasis on the extraordinary and the technological. And yet, London is still London at this time. And that is what is feeding our newest threat, which is Sally No Face, a classic between threat. The Daily Telegraph, a proper newspaper, has a story about a washerwoman named Clara Yarborough who was found dead in a hallway of her tenement house in Whitechapel. Her face had been carefully removed. This is the third such crime this month. The other two victims, Edward Clive and Dolly Merriweather, also lived in Whitechapel. People are already saying it's old Sally No Face who's doing it, but Sally No Face is just a legend. Children have been singing her song in the streets for as long as anyone can remember. Poor old Sally, trapped in a fire, her looks burned up without a trace. If you're lovely with fate most dire, she'll come and take your lovely face. A question for Jakob, actually. You've been in London long enough. Jakob, you have a history with washerwoman Clara Yarborough. What is it?
Oh, I do. Um, what is it? I'm a little stumped here. Sorry.
I'll think on it. We
I've
have three
got,
questions.
yeah, I like that. Sarah put a little idea. I've only got the one suit. That seems fair. Yeah. I don't have a lot of clothing, and so I'm
You see
often,
her frequently.
yeah, getting my thing laundered and see her frequently, and still kind of leery when I go there, remembering the children who mugged me. I'm expecting children to jump out of any alley at any time.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's sort of a trepidatious laundry trip.
You and East London have a relationship. There are three questions and opportunities available for this threat. The first is a complexity 4. Where is the killer hiding? Resolve the threat by infiltrating the killer's lair, then capturing or destroying them. Complexity 6 is how is the killer choosing their victims? Resolve the threat by luring the killer to you, then capturing or destroying them. The more complex question is what is the true identity of the killer and what drove them to this madness? Resolve the threat by empathizing with the killer, then bringing them in peacefully. You also have an aspect of the Janus mask here called the Mask of Beauty. Each hunter narrates a flashback to a time when they felt truly beautiful. So, a little bit of regular old mundane, well, mundane in the sense of it's not supernatural or magical or anything, murder happening in London as well. Let's go around the table and figure out what everyone's interested in doing today. We'll start with Mr. Constantine.
I can't really not look into the Star Beast. That's just too much fun.
How are you going to do it?
Back at the where did I was hunted by it between the mills, I think, in an alley.
Yeah,
So,
like a little space between the mills. It's really just an island with like a yard in the middle and then three big buildings essentially.
well, I think we only checked out one building, so maybe try the next.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Back to Three Mills Island it is. What about you, Ms. Balakwa?
Victoria brought Albertina home last night, and if I recall correctly, she was observed by Dominic to have green tendrils underneath her
I believe
fingernails.
that's right. Yeah,
And
I think
so
that's right. Yeah.
on the mantelpiece where I had placed the emerald orchid that she had gifted me, when I awake alone the next morning, the orchids have started to like fill out, like they busted free of the cloche and have started to line the mantelpiece. And kind of staring for a moment, well, I suppose I should probably look into that.
I actually have a scene in mind, so I know I'm going to start with you. Mr. Walsh.
So I feel like my washerwoman being deceased is a pressing matter. I need to check in on that.
Yeah, she
Do we
would
have
have been
specific
like
locations?
if not a friend, at least a friendly acquaintance, right? Well, you know where she lived, and that's also where the body was found. And then just Whitechapel, that's where other victims were found as well. So just heading down to Whitechapel might be productive. But Scotland Yard is on this one, so you have to be kind of careful of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go poke around her place.
And finally, Lady Florence. Cromorn Gardens has been quiet as of late. What do you want to go do?
I think the last thing that I had been looking into was the Emerald Orchid, so I think that makes sense to pursue.
Do you want some leads?
Yeah.
So there's still quite a lot on the table here. There is this restaurant, the Lavender Terrace, which the professor was going to try to take you to. I think he mentioned it briefly, but he never got to. But apparently it's where some of the sort of orchid enthusiasts have been hanging out. There is also, there are a couple of options in terms of greenhouses / conservatories. There's the Kew Gardens greenhouse, which is very busy as of late because of the new fad. And there is this more secret conservatory, which is maintained by an individual who calls himself the botanist. This is a rumor that has reached Hargrave House.
Well, I don't think I can let a lunch reservation go to waste, so I will head towards the Lavender
Terrace, yeah.
Terrace.
You will be by yourself because the professor was vaporized by Jazad.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a good move. Great. I love it. Okay. Let me think about how I want these scenes to go. I do want to start with Ms. Balakwa, actually. This is the next day. Albertina comes down to you looking at the orchid, which is busted free from its cloche, and she comes down wrapped in a dressing gown. And she says, "Do you have any plans for today?"
Well, nothing pressing. Did you have a suggestion, my dear?
Well, I thought perhaps we could take a little trip. I have lately gotten into tending flowers and appreciating botany. As you know, it's sort of a thing in the city right now. That and people from Venus. What a time. There is a specialist in this area who has extended invitations to his conservatory to people who, I don't want to seem too conceited here, but to people who are, well, in a certain set in London, we'll say.
Well, you have always struck me as someone who wants to be at the center of the trendiest fashions. Yes, I perhaps could ask them what circumstances brought on the abundance of orchids upstairs. I tended to it not at all.
Well, perhaps it's Venusian radio waves.
Oh, dear, you really shouldn't speak about things you don't understand.
I'm just being lighthearted. Let me get dressed, and we'll go there directly.
I think that I might, in the effort of fashion, dress as a Venusian might today. The veils look and drapery might be very fun.
Meanwhile, Jakob, you are at Clara's tenement house. It's a 3-story structure. There are beggars and sex workers kind of all over, just kind of hanging out in the halls. It's very poorly lit. Let's paint the scene. This building was originally a charity project, now abandoned for some wealthy do-gooder. What faded remnants of their largesse do we see around us?
In the dim light, you can still make out there's some rather fancy flocked wallpaper, kind of that William Morris style of decor.
And the exterior of the building, perhaps there is what looks like a recently added sign hanging on a very like copper scrolled sort of, and it looks newer than the rest of the building, but it started to flake paint.
The stairway up to the entrance, the banisters are there's carved cherubs and little angels that more often than not, their outstretched hands are holding cigar butts and detritus.
I think that there's a cabinet of curiosities, and a number of these curiosities are like chicken bones and just like very like um there's like a collection of oddities, and then there's like these very normal things that have just been like mixed in to kind of like fill in the space.
Interesting. Mr. Walsh, when you get up to the floor where Clara's apartment is, you will notice that there is a police constable posted at the door, though he's not being extremely diligent in his duties. He is actually kind of sunk down and is sitting on the hallway floor next to the door, his cap tipped over his face as he catches some Z's this morning. What do you do?
Um, is it? It's morning, yeah.
It's early in the day. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna nudge his foot to wake him up, kind of shake his shoulder a little bit, and say,
He says, "Oh,
there's been a distressing amount of pink light outside this morning. I think something's up with the Venusian airship. Um, I think we need your help. Can you go check on it?"
he's like, sure, certainly. Well, pink light. I think I want the day move here. What are you afraid is going to happen if he doesn't fall for this?"
Oh, if he doesn't fall for it. He just doesn't care. Like he just remains sitting there now awake, arms folded, like
Yeah.
pink light's
Roll,
not in my jurisdiction.
roll with composure.
All right. What we got? Oh, 6. Do I have any special composure? 7. Whew.
He says, yeah, I suppose there's not. Well, I have to tell you how you'll be vulnerable. You'll be or basically he's going to go out. You don't have a lot of time. Basically, you get like
Yeah.
just like one quick pass around the apartment. He says, yeah, I can go take a look. It doesn't seem like there's too much going on around here anyway. Do you live in this building?
No, I have my laundry done here often.
Oh, well, you may have to start looking for a new place. Do me a favor, watch this door.
Certainly, will do.
And he goes downstairs, leaving you to it. We'll come back to this. Lady Florence, the Lavender Terrace, quite a different scene than the tenement building where Clara Yarborough lives. There is a kaleidoscope of lace and floral patterns that decorate every service, delicate china teacups with gilded interiors balanced on silver trays. Murmuring customers lean close over private tables as butterflies dance over blooming window boxes. Let's paint the scene. This tea room is a sanctum of refined indulgence where customers set aside the responsibilities of housekeeping and family affairs. What off-menu delights lower inhibitions and loosen the tongue? What dangerous truths are spoken more freely here?
There is a new cocktail that isn't on the menu that features like within the liquid, you can see these small crawling red worms that are said to be imported from Venus. They wriggle while you drink them.
As a dessert, if the chef is or the hosts are very keen on you staying just an extra few minutes, they will serve you a coupe glass filled too tall with a bunch of cakes and gelatin layers that kind of wobble as it's brought to the table. And it's infused with more alcohol than it is proper to drink at tea time. But this might loosen tongues and imply that these Victorian women, men are talking a little bit more blatantly about sexual things.
Not just sexual things, because this place being as popular and as avant-garde as it is, it attracts people from the mid to high echelons of the royal family and other positions of power. And those loosened tongues can be quite the source of really interesting and dangerous gossip.
And the fruit's all just soaked in gin. That is just the thing. Like they wash it in gin, they soak it in gin. It is so like blatant and over the top that one of the things that people just end up talking about is different substances that they've slipped into meals for other people when they've cooked. Whether that be yeah, alcohol or some other poison. Yeah.
Lady Florence, I think after you sit down at your table, you're approached by the owner of the Lavender Terrace. Her name is Margaret Ward. She is a sort of bustling ballet of floral prints and perfume. She's sort of, you know, kind of floats about between tables, engaging in bubbling chatter. She's quite cordial and like the butterflies that kind of are overhead. She floats about as well. She's known to be able to smell gossip across a busy street. She comes to you and she says, Lady Florence, how delightful for you to be joining us here today. I was wondering if you were ever going to stop by.
Oh, Miss Ward, it's so good to see you. Yes, I haven't been able to get a reservation for some reason, but my dear
How
friend,
preposterous. You
Professor.
should just come directly to me next time. I'll make sure you have a table.
Hmm, that's a good plan. But I am here now. Would you like to sit and share a story or two?
No, no, I'm afraid I can't, but I will be happy to take your order personally. What would you like?
Could I get one of those delicious scones? And I will
Oh,
have a little
yes.
bit of the genmaicha, please.
Indeed, indeed. The spice scones are delectable. There are, of course, more substantial offerings to delight your palate, Lady Florence, should you be so inclined.
Oh, are they? We're talking about the secret menu then, are we?
Well, only for someone from the peerage.
Oh, well, I do appreciate it. What do you recommend these days?
I'll surprise you. And then she turns and goes off. Oh, and then she turns back and says, By yourself today?
Oh, yes, my companion, the reservation was under Harris, I believe, is unable to join us. He's gotten himself tangled up in this whole Emerald Orchid business.
Hmm.
You've heard a bit about that, I assume.
Oh, a bit. I ask because we're very busy and, well, if you don't mind, maybe another solo diner could join you.
I suppose that would work.
Excellent. And she goes off. Mr. Constantine, back at Three Mills Island. What's your approach here?
If it's all right, I think I would like to have brought the slugger.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that sounds fine.
So when Dom was last here, we found that body between the buildings, and then he followed the
It's a
trail.
torso, yeah.
Right, yeah, it's a part of a body. I think one of the mills was a dye maker.
Yeah, there's a die maker,
Or-
yeah.
What are the other businesses here?
We had kind of like hinted at what they are, but I can't remember if we ever like set out
To
right.
paint the scene prompt. I
Yeah.
said that they might be like harvesting a whale carcass for
Right.
like breaking down blubber and whatnot.
Rendering
And
whale
then
stuff, yeah.
Brian was saying that there was a perfumist, I think, trying to
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and an opium producer or den.
Right. Yeah. See, that was the kind of the secret work. Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll kind of go with that.
Okay. Let's go with the whaling facility.
Yeah, I think it's probably more accurate to say that it's like this is like once the ambergris has like been rendered and now they're changing it into perfume. You can't miss it. As soon as you get within probably like 50 feet, you're gonna smell it. The slugger, he says, I suppose that fragrance doesn't give you Herculean strength or power.
It does not, but it's a good exercise for the stomach muscles.
Yes, well, he says, I guess I just have rougher preferences when it comes to such things.
As do I, but as hunters, sometimes we have to go where things are not quite so pleasant.
I think getting into the mill is no trouble, although probably there are people there who will kind of give you a funny look, and maybe like a floor manager will come up to you and say, he's got like a mask on, right? And he's like, yeah, can I help you?
Yes, we're with well, it's a new newspaper, you see. We're just getting started and we're looking for information on the tragedies that have struck this island.
A lot of those new newspapers starting up lately, it seems. Seems like every day
You
there's
may have met my colleague.
Oh, yes, Mr. Newcastle.
That's the one.
Did you ever settle on a name for your new paper?
We're hoping to reveal it with the first issue. Bit of a surprise, you see.
Must make marketing it very difficult when you can't say the name of it.
It must, yes.
Very well. Sorry, what did you want again?
Have you encountered anything odd? Have you seen anyone here who shouldn't be here besides?
And here, a woman who's very smartly dressed, very professional looking, she comes up to you and she says, hello, my name is Cora Adamsworth. I am the owner of the mill, and I don't remember anyone sending notice or asking for permission to come in and poke around about things that may or may not be happening on Three Mills Island.
Well, that's what
Bill, you can
I'm
go
doing
back
right
to
here.
your job now. Thank you. So,
Ms. Adamsworth, I have heard quite a bit about you. Would you be
Splendid.
interested in discussing this these tragedies befalling you and your businesses here?
Do the meddling move with presence. I'm going to invoke Mark by the Slugger because I think like the Slugger just sticks out. Like he does not seem like the kind of person who should be doing this. So with all of his tattoos and
Fair. 2.
a 2. What a terrible, terrible roll.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.
A 4. Not twice as good, still equally bad. Yeah. We'll come back to this. Ms. Balakwa, you do arrive at, well, I think first, let me think here how I want to go about this. I think the conservatory actually is found at Kew Gardens. Kew Gardens is a sort of large public garden space, right? And it's famous for this extravagant greenhouse, which is where most of the attention and most of the people kind of end up wandering through. It is very busy. There are Venusians and Londoners walking about. The Venusians are very intrigued by the flora of this world, and many of the Londoners are equally intrigued by the Venusians. But you also hear overheard little snatches of chatter about the emerald orchid, right? And some people are even wondering if like the emerald orchid was like a sort of a gift from the Venusians. This is something that people are thinking right now, that it was like a gift sent to London before their arrival. There's no evidence of that, but that's just something people are saying. Albertina says, if you want to look around for a bit, dear, I have to go inquire with the botanist to make sure it's okay that we stop by right now. Perhaps go through the greenhouse. It's lovely.
Well, especially as everything seems to brighten up with spring, I can only imagine the beautiful blooms on display. I do hope that you won't be long. Kind of squeezes her arm a little.
I'll come find you in a moment. And she actually does leave. Do you go to the greenhouse?
I do. Victoria dressed in the Venusian fashion today. She had someone on Savile Row put together a dark, sheer sort of black robed outfit with the matte black bracers and then like a little bit of red underneath.
I like
And
it.
so she expects to command some attention wandering through.
The greenhouse at Kew Gardens, hazy glass panes that filter the sun, stunning exotic blooms, their hues mirrored in the fashionable attire of the visitors, actually. Thick, humid air, the scent of sweet pollen and damp soil. This is a fun paint the scene. Time passes differently in the greenhouse. How do you begin to experience the world through the perspective of the plants growing here?
The humidity in the air makes it thick to breathe, and there's a sensation that's very unfamiliar to a human. As you're breathing in less oxygen, you feel almost as if you are exhaling through your skin, some sort of synthesis.
I was just reading an article the other day that was fun, so I'm going to tie that in. Plants actually cry, and when they are cut or dry, they make a sound that is too quiet and too slow for us to hear. But in this place, you can hear the sound of these happy, well-watered plants sighing.
That's vaguely horrifying. Just want to throw that out there.
I think there's just well, they're all potted in fresh soil. There's a spilled bag of soil, and stepping into it, normally you would sort of, if you notice, step over a big pile of dirt. But here, like you step into it, there's that sort of soft squelch and just a moment of tranquility. Kind of remain planted for a moment before moving on.
And you can feel light. It almost feels like slow, warm raindrops. And so as you shift between like the light gazing through the glass and the shade, there your body just feels very different.
Miss Belacqua, I will give you an information move here while you're in the greenhouse. What do you do?
I think that Miss Balakwa is enjoying being seen and is going to use that opportunity to eavesdrop on any conversation that she can regarding this orchid and botanist, if there's any gossip between others, as she just casually touches the leaves and continues to move through.
Do the information move with it's going to be composure, and I'm going to put you at disadvantage because I don't think you're as like inconspicuous as you think you are, right? Or because of most beloved and your manner of dress.
Oh, I guess I'm looking very conspicuous and
Oh,
trying to eavesdrop inconspicuously, but
I
I
think it's
see
the
where
same.
the
I think it's the same
disadvantage is
idea,
coming
though.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's the same idea. Yeah,
Well, all right. 7 with composure. I think I have a +1.
you do.
Yes. So 8.
We'll come back to this.
Meddling.
We'll come back to this, but I will go ahead and telegraph your complication. Tunara is here. So
100%. Yeah.
let's cut over to Mr. Walsh. Mr. Walsh, you don't have a lot of time in the apartment here. What do you do?
Yeah. Just a quick search to see what's left behind. Like is there a diary? Is there written anything? Is there the big bloody handprint on the window?
I'm going to let you have your information move. I'm actually going to do composure, though, because of the speed with which you have to search.
All right. 7 again.
I'll give you a clue now. A quick glance around the flat. You find the one thing that sticks out in this otherwise kind of dingy gray environment is a gold embossed card inviting just the holder of the card to an extraordinary new exhibit of art and medicine. No address or date is given.
I'm
The
definitely gonna pocket that.
complication is sort of you have the option of trying to figure out where this exhibit is. It's more of an opportunity than a complication.
Yeah. I'll pocket the card and rapidly exit back out the door to resume my guard duty.
You can add the card to your personal quarters as well.
Okay.
But it's also a clue. Lady Florence. Lady Florence, you are joined by another diner, or another patron, we'll say. The patron is Lord Pembroke, who you know. He has thick mutton chop whiskers, rosy cheeks, squinting eyes. He's always compulsively checking his gold pocket watch. And he's one of those men who's always like kind of half smiling and chuckling to himself at some private joke, you know. He is considered to be quite insufferable in the circles you run in, if not for the fact that he is very, very generous with his money. He likes to invest in local businesses and ventures. Probably he's investing in the Lavender Terrace because he only ever has time to check on his investments. And he says, Lady Florence, I was told I was going to be joining someone's table here at this pleasantly busy little establishment, but I did not know it was going to be your table. What a delight.
The pleasure is all yours, Pembroke.
Oh, there's that classic Wilton Davies wit. So, this doesn't really seem like your scene.
Just, there's all this business about floral arrangements lately, and I just thought that I would catch up on how it's trickling down into the local dining establishments.
Floral arrangements? What are you getting at, Lady Florence? This is unusual behavior.
I mean, surely an entrepreneur like yourself would be looking into this trending craze around the Emerald Orchid.
The Emerald Orchid, yes. The marvels of the natural world never cease to inspire. Every secret we uncover brings another mystery, it seems, and this is an intriguing one.
Have you been looking at any investments into its production?
Well, it's an unusual and tricky situation, actually. Normally, the money for this sort of thing would be to invest in, well, like in a fabulous new exhibit at Kew Gardens, for example, or perhaps something in a natural history museum. But the Emerald Orchid is unusual in the sense that the people who have them want to keep them all to themselves, locked behind parlor doors, not exactly happy to show them off. It's been a bit tricky, but you do know my mind in a surprisingly astute way. Oh, yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Something tells me this is not about flowers, Lady Florence.
That's my suspicion as well, Pembroke.
Make the information move with presence.
Okay. That is going to be a high number. It's going to be 12.
Oh, very good. We'll come back to that. So I owe a clue and possibly a mastermind clue to Lady Florence. I owe a clue to... I actually do owe another clue to Jakob because of Vault of the Cosmic Mind, which we'll get back to. I owe a clue to Miss Balakwa, plus an encounter with Tunara. Let's pick up with Mr. Constantine, who... there was some controversy about your dice, Ben? What's going on there?
My dice roller has a surprise April Fool's mode.
Oh,
and
does
so
it really?
Showing ones.
What?
But
Are
it
you
was
kidding
actually
me?
a 12.
Oh my god.
No.
So you got a 12 then on your roll?
I got a 12.
Okay, very good. Well, I owe you a clue then, plus also potentially a mastermind clue. We'll start with the clue first. This is from Miss Adamsworth, right?
Yes.
She says, what was your name again?
Mr. Dominic.
And you represent, what was the name of the paper again, Mr. Dominic?
The London Lighthouse is what we're currently working with.
Oh, the London Lighthouse. That's very alliterative. I think that people might like that.
That's what we're hoping, miss.
Mr. Dominic, you wouldn't believe the trouble I went to acquire these buildings on this island. This seems to be the only place in all of London right now where someone can actually get some work done. What sort of work? Well, look around. But... And then she kind of looks over. Let me take a look at the clues you already have, because I want to make sure I'm not contradicting anything too badly. Okay. She looks over in the work floor of this particular building. And she says, the trickier thing has been finding the right workers to do that work. And you'll notice here that a lot of the workers here at this mill have very detailed and particular tattoos on their arms and neck. The slugger noticed it too, and he's noticing if you notice it. I'll let you know more about the clues if you just take the time to go look at the tattoos, but we'll pick up with the rest of this in a bit. Let's take a 5-minute break so I can think about mastermind clues and things. Maybe go out a little bit out of order here. Lady Florence, Lord Pembroke says, well, there are lots of stories about these, emerald orchids, and something tells me this is related to your work at Hargrave House. Do I have that quite right?
Hargrave House is always looking to invest in the future of this fine nation.
He leans forward and says, I have managed to get my hands on something, Lady Florence, and I'd be happy to send it over to Hargrave House for you to peruse, if you'd like. A book. Interesting title. Herald of the Emerald Seed. It's a sort of esoteric occult manifesto describing an intelligent, plant-like, how does it put it, glowing messiah, which will apparently guide humanity into a vibrant resurrection or some such nonsense. Would you like me to send it along?
Oh, yes. I love the pulp fiction like that.
That's your clue, this book. The Emerald, Herald of the Emerald Seed. And you also notice, this is your mastermind clue, as he's getting ready to pay for his food, he pulls out of his little, whatever men used back then to carry money in. You notice he's got some he actually has a fair amount of what appears to be Venusian currency. The currency are little square carved crystals, and he kind of roots around in those to get proper Victorian money. But that's your mastermind clue, because you were owed one, right? I believe you were. Yeah. And then before your time at the Lavender Terrace is over, Ms. Ward returns with a very special little cake for the two of you to enjoy. And Lord Pembroke says, if I know you, Ms. Ward, this cake is going to give me a lot more than a sugar rush. And she kind of smiles and winks and then walks off. He slices into the cake heartily and excitedly. Do you eat some?
I think that being a lady, I am going to cut it into dainty bits. I will maybe take one little bite, but I also want to pocket a small bit of this, fold it up in a napkin, and
You
put
can
it in my bag.
Your one little bite starts to have a hallucinogenic effect on you. It is laced with something. But you can have a slice of it. I'll let you put it in your personal quarters even.
Cool.
Let's cut back over to Jakob. Jakob, you turn back to the flat one last time before leaving. And this is when you truly experience the vault of the cosmic mind, because outdoor, the window that faces the street, which is open, becomes suddenly darkened with what appears to be a starry night sky, but not just a starry night sky. It is a vision of the cosmos outside the window. And then the room itself begins to break apart, and its component parts begin to fly away into the cosmos, spread away. A bed flies over here, a chest of drawers soars over there. The walls spin away like strange fractals into nothingness, leaving a clue right in the center where you can easily find it. And that clue is looking right now. I should have picked it beforehand, but I did not. That clue is a novel. Just some tawdry novel that if you go back in and take it, and peruse it, you'll discover that it's a novel that is about, the sorts of things novels are about. Lurid affairs, young love shattered, that kind of thing. But the cosmic mind wants you to know it.
Yeah, I'll definitely take it, and I love the visual for how the cosmic mind opened up. That was neat.
Yeah, go ahead and note that in the clues. Ms. Blakwa, your overheard clue is not so much a clue. It's a clue, but it's also kind of a problem. You are noticing these little pale roots and tendrils creeping from a number of sleeves and collars, unnoticed by the wearer. That is your clue of sorts. And then Tunara comes up to you. You see her. She is resplendent in her sort of flowing, they almost have like a kind of like Grecian quality, these like tunics that they wear with her gold bangles. And she says, "Ah, Victoria Balakwa, how charming to see you here, and I do love your choice of fashion, though, my dear, you are wearing these braces in not quite the traditional manner." And she takes your hand carefully, sensually, to adjust the bracer on your wrist. And she says, "Have you given any thought to my offer to join my harem?"
Oh, that's why your voice is so familiar. Yes, I'm sorry. I do not. I hear so many voices. It's best not to, reply to the unsolicited ones. Those voices that speak in my mind can often mean me harm.
Oh, Miss Balakwa, I am charmed by you, nonetheless. I find myself drawn to you. You are more interesting than the rest of your species, at least of the ones I've met so far. I can offer you much. I can offer you great swathes of the galaxy,
I think
huge tracts of territory.
I think Victoria is going to exchange her hand and trying to embrace in the other way and grasp her wrist and say, "I do appreciate your interest to Nara, but honestly, not only is this extremely forward based on my own customs, but frankly, I can never imagine being kept ever again.
Ever again.
My aunts were very particularly controlling on my upbringing, and it's not something that I wish to repeat.
That woman I saw you come in with, is she part of your harem?
I don't keep anyone. They're just pretty things in my orbit.
I apologize. I believe our customs are perhaps different. And she smiles and says, back on my home world, I am a legendary huntress. I always catch my prey.
Victoria will brush a hand along her shoulder and say, I look forward to the hunt. Perhaps a proper invitation next time would be more successful.
She smiles and bids you adieu. Mr. Constantine. Ms. Adamsworth doesn't have time to dally, and so she excuses herself. If you both, or either of you, go up to look at the tattoos of the workers, you're going to notice that this is your clue. The tattoos are, well, give me 1 second. The tattoos are star charts, constellations. One of the workers has a very prominent chest tattoo underneath their open shirt of Venus. That's the mastermind clue.
I think Dom would turn to the slugger and say, did you go to the same shop? And tap his chest, because he also had a star chart on his chest.
Oh, indeed he did. How intriguing. He says, truth be told, I don't remember when or how I got that tattoo. Things were a little hazy from time to time before I joined Hargrave House. They're certainly less hazy, but more gloomy from time to time.
Well, it's not the glowing endorsement I was expecting, but I'll take it.
And he says, for what it's worth, being in a Hargrave House does frequently get my blood up.
That I will claim responsibility for.
And now we have a little more time in this phase, I think. I have a plan for Ms. Belacqua because we have a follow-up from Albertina, but Jakob, what would you do once you're done at the flat?
Ooh, that's a good question. Thinking to backtrack and poke around. Well, give me a second to figure this out.
I'll come back to you. Mr. Constantine?
I feel like we might be. I wonder if I could try and lure, or at least figure out what Dom would feel was stalking him.
Yeah, that seems like a good move. Could be a good sensitivity roll. Lady Florence, anything else to do at the Lavender Terrace, or do you want to move on?
Probably not at the Lavender Terrace. I'm hallucinating at the moment, right? And I
Not
think it
so
might be
badly that like it's going to affect
right,
you. Yeah.
but I think it might be interesting to go to um either there was like there were two separate greenhouses. Is that true, or just the
There's
one?
just the one at Kew Gardens, but apparently this strange individual, the botanist, and their conservatory is also in Kew Gardens somewhere.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Albertina's about to deliver news of that to Ms. Balakwa, in fact.
Right.
So other options might be to go back to the university because that kind of got interrupted by the professor.
Hmm.
If you were to go back there, there might even be. There was talk at the Lavender Terrace of a curiosity shop where
Mm.
rare flora and fauna have been kept, that kind of thing.
I'm curious, Miss Balakwa, if you are continuing to pull on the thread here and maybe we meet up.
Certainly fine with that.
I'll start with that then, and then we'll circle back to you, Lady Florence. Jakob, what do you want to do post flat?
I think try and check on these other victims, the Edward Clive and Dolly Merriweather, see what their spaces look like.
Oh, that's interesting. Those might be easier to get into too because they're older, somewhat older cases. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Let's pick up with Ms. Balakwa briefly. Albertina comes to you and she says, Victoria, I have wonderful news.
You were gone such a long time.
Well, surely you had plenty to distract you here. And I was only gone for mere moments, though I've heard that walking about in the greenhouse sometimes does give one a rather unmoored sense of time and space.
Perhaps that's it. You had good
Wonderful
news?
news. I do indeed. We have received an invitation to meet with the botanist privately tonight.
Oh, I mean, I had hoped that we might find ourselves alone again this evening. Does he have no other time today?
Victoria, the botanist is not the kind of person who organizes his schedule around the needs of people like you and me. If he's agreed to see us tonight, it's an invitation we should certainly take advantage of.
Well, I certainly have many questions, so if you think it is wise. Do I notice the tendrils in Albertina now for the first time?
Yes, because yeah, you're noticing the
Because
signs.
that clue,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Is
So you
it
will have a
just you
chance
and
to.
I,
You'll have a
then?
chance to. Well, she'll say. He says he's mostly interested in meeting you, and a +1 was how he put it, or how
Well,
it was
then,
put to me. I didn't meet him myself.
then I plan to keep that appointment. Thank you so much. You are truly a treasure.
And she gives you kind of a funny look, not sure if you intend to make her the +1 or not. And we'll just kind of wrap that there, I think. Lady Florence, so you have a date to the botanist tonight if you want it. If you want to pop by the curiosity shop on the way out, though, you certainly can.
Let's do it.
There's an innocuous little side door in a building that leads to some stairs up to a top floor flat. Inside are faded rugs and tapestries arranged to evoke an Egyptian bazaar. Cabinets beckon with rare artifacts, exotic specimens of flora and fauna illuminated by a stained glass window. Let's paint the scene. What counterfeit wares are presented as rare commodities? What item does the proprietor seem desperate to be rid of?
I think classic Mike House on the Rock moment. I think there's the crown jewels are here. obviously counterfeit.
There is a shard of wood in a glass bottle that the owner will intimate is from the True Cross, but also seems very willing to sell it at a shockingly low price.
There's an emerald orchid in a closed shade, but then if you get at the right angle, you can see there's a whole rack of them, like behind a door in a back storeroom.
In addition to all of these trinkets, it looks as if he has a proper Grecian urn that is set aside in the center of the shop. And as you look closer at it, it does look like it was watercolored recently.
I'll note that I just finished reading Needful Things, so this is kind of a funny little synchronicity, I suppose. You are met rather quickly, Lady Florence, by the proprietor of the shop, a Ms. Rosalind Weaver. She has well-kept curls that peek from behind the latest fashionable bonnet, and she has a paper fan, always in motion, giving the effect of painted birds on it, an appearance of flight. Very unsettling green eyes, but a kindly smile. She says, "Oh, I know who you are. You are from Hargrave House. The Hargrave House. I've heard such glowing accolades about your work. You're here on an investigation, I presume. You must have collected some rather scandalous stories by now, and other interesting lines of inquiry into esoteric matters, hmm?
I have. Tell me, my head's bothering me a little bit. Does your shop exist in the past and the present and the future all at one time?
We are
Yeah.
truly kindred spirits. Fellow travelers, I can see it.
And if I were to oh, and I notice the emerald orchids over on the wall, and I say, I've been looking for those, but not those. And I kind of like am pointing towards the back where there's the rows and rows of them. But the real kind?
Make the information move with presence.
Okay. 7, 8.
She says, "Well, I might know something about the real kind, as you put it. I'd be happy to tell you everything I know. In fact, if you were to join me and some friends here tonight, we're having a little seance."
Oh, that's intriguing. I do have another fair, I believe, or I'm getting a sense of it. The universe seems to be communicating things to me that I shouldn't know.
She says, "Here, take this. A token of my appreciation for the work you do at Hargrave House. And perhaps a reminder that I would like to continue our association." And she presses into your hands a book. Oh no, you have this book already, Le Fleur de Mal.
Mhm.
Instead, she presses into your hands a battered copy of Principles of Scientific Botany from 1849, heavily annotated and bookmarked, pages stained with a strange iridescent fluid.
Mm.
That might be the place to start your inquiries about the real thing.
Start, finish. continue. It's all the same, isn't it, really?
Time is a circle, malleable, wide, expanding, contracting. You must come by to the seance tonight.
It does sound rather alluring.
The intersection between time and the spirit realm is fascinating indeed.
Time in the spirit realm is like a snake eating its own tail, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. And we'll cut
And
there.
I just kind of wander out.
Yeah.
Like staring off into space. Yeah.
You do have your clue, though, this botany book. It is called Principles of Scientific Botany. But interesting, but the important thing probably is that the pages are stained with iridescent fluid. That's Lady Florence. That's Ms. Belacqua. Let's click over to Jakob. Jakob. You get downstairs, out the building, and before you can kind of proceed too much further with your investigation, you're approached by a beggar that you will know the name of because Clara would have mentioned him. His name is Old Boot. And Old Boot has wild eyes. He smells of urine. A surprisingly handsome pocket square of blue silk. And he's known to know a lot and see a lot. I have a question for you. Do you have the Cosmic Passage marked?
Let me hop to that tab 1 second. Getting there. Yes.
Old Boot will give you a free clue
All
for
right.
having the Cosmic Passage marked. He comes right up to you and he says, "Young man, everything you see around us is a lie. A facade meant to keep us pliable. I have seen beneath the artifice. I have seen what lies just beyond normal perception. I can tell that you have seen it too. What have you seen? Tell me. I'll tell you what I've seen."
I've seen just galaxies through windows. The Venusian airship was just one of many. There's more visitors out there, I'm sure. I can feel it in my bones.
Yes. Yes. I've seen blood. I have seen, indeed see, the veins of the people around us all. Veins pressing against the surface of their flesh. The flesh, windows into the blood, opening a portal. The blood is neither blue nor red. The blood is black. Veins filled with black blood. That's what they don't want us to see. That's what we're not meant to know.
Yeah, that is a revelation. Disturbing. I'm sorry you had to experience that. I'm glad you've made me aware.
And he walks off, ranting down the street. That is your clue, though, or you get it's a freebie clue.
It's
For
sort of
having
the visions of black blood or black
Yeah.
veins. Right.
Black veins and black blood. Finally, for the day phase, we'll stop by with Mr. Constantine. Mr. Constantine, you're going to try to find the Star Beast, or this beast, this invisible creature that you could feel breathing down your neck the day before. What do you do?
I think he would go back to that alley where the body was found and ask the slugger to stay back at the entrance. And I think after a moment of scanning the walls and looking for prints, he's going to take a gamble and he'll draw out one of his blades and he'll just make a small cut in his hand and hold it up See if that draws any attention.
What's the rule that's being evoked right now?
The rule?
I mean, is this a hunter's life you're doing, or is this something else?
Oh,
Oh, it's only physical combat.
Yeah.
Never mind. I just didn't know if you were invoking a move or something here.
No, just hopefully a night roll, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still the information move, but probably just with vitality.
All right. A 7.
7. You will sense the beast. The beast is stalking, but not stalking you. The beast is stalking the slugger. But also a clue. The clue is you start to see unreadable script, strange shapes and pictographs depicted along the wall of the mill, as if written there with strange, invisible ink. That's your clue. But there's a problem. The star beast is stalking the slugger. You can sense it moving in for the kill, even though you can't see it. The slugger is none the wiser. What do you do?
Would it be reasonable for me to have my bear trap available?
I don't. Well, because you encountered the beast the day before, I would say yes. Otherwise, I would say no.
I would
Have
take
that
that
laid
out.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of knowing it's after the slug, knowing it's nearby, I think I'd call the slugger over to where hopefully it would put the trap between him and the beast.
We'll do the day move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
It'll get. Actually, I think he's more afraid the slugger will get it before he can.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, roll with composure.
Advantage for the trap.
Cancelled out by marked by the star beast.
9.
I think you are going to prevent the attack on the slugger and injure the star beast, but not capture it. You still can't see the star beast, but describe what happens here.
He can, with his years of hunting things that hunt people, he can feel its presence more than pinpoint it. And as he calls to the slugger, there's just a slight disturbance in the dirt between the buildings, and he'll move quickly to pull the slugger out of the way as the bear trap snaps closed on something and then gets pulled into the air and flung off into the wall. And as Dom watches the disturbances in the dirt run away, I think he'll walk forward to where the bear trap was and see if there's any blood or fluid on there.
Yeah, there is. It's a strange iridescent color, but it is definitely the blood of the creature.
He'll run his finger along the blade and just raise a drop to his lips and interesting.
Indeed, indeed. I'll let you clear that condition since you've injured the creature. That's going to conclude the day phase. I do want to, before we go into the dusk, I'm curious if you're all interested in answering a question this dusk phase. Because if so, we're going to take our break now and take kind of a longer one so you can think about the answer. So why don't we take a 10-minute break so you can look at your clues? I assume you're going to go after Three Mills Island, and we'll come back and do that. It's the dusk phase. Let's see. Paint the scene about Hargrave House, unless the Royal Explorers Club is getting involved in some way tonight. Let's do the... Oh, we're running out of rooms, actually. Well, let's do the reception hall, very first one. Do you feel unsettled or at home when you enter Hargrave House? What do you perceive in the reception hall that reinforces this feeling?
I think Dom feels unsettled in the reception hall because it is always a reminder that this isn't home. This will never be home. This is where he works. And there are all the little signs of Jakob's coat hanging on a coat hanger. Lady Florence has, I'm sure, added something to mark her presence. I think the only presence he is not unsettled by is Victoria.
I think for the exact opposite reason, Victoria finds a bit of peace and is quite settled. Coming into Hargrave House, she knows for a fact that it isn't home, and therefore is a place that she can be herself. And things that kind of reinforce that is the hunter's detritus. It's the things cast everywhere. We have no staff. So unlike her home, it is not a pristine and organized place. It is a never-ending miasma of chaos.
For Jakob, it's rather homey. It's no Welsh farmhouse in Jan Pedrogog, but the reception hall itself is almost the size of the farmhouse. But there is a upholstered bench near the door, and every time I see that, I finally remember that when I arrived at Hargrave House, Lady Florence herself took up my luggage and set the suitcase on that little plush bench. And now when you pause there to adjust your coat, lace up your boots, whatever, it's a fond memory, kind of welcoming home.
And just sort of like, below, and that bench is essentially facing an area where the floorboards have been sort of cut out, or they end, and there's sort of like almost like a welcome mat, but it's a slab of rock. It's unclear if that's, I think the assumption for most people is that it is from Atlantis and it is deep sea rock that's sort of here, but it's entirely possible, based on what we've learned, that that's from Venus, it's from some other planet. And so yes, Lady Florence feels at home whenever she comes into this reception hall and stepping across this welcome mat of strange stone.
So it sounds like you all want to answer a question about the monochromatic men of Three Mills Island. You have a whopping 9 clues. Which question am I going to try to answer here?
I think that we were aiming towards the how as opposed to the who. You're muted.
So if you answer this correctly, it allows you to resolve the threat by controlling or stopping the next key component or procedure of the ritual, ruining any further attempt at it until the stars align. Again, 1,000 years from now. So basically, this is a little bit like this is a lot like this is a little bit like the Waitley camera, right? Like, what is the procedure, and then stop the procedure, the last bit of it. So I'm into this. What is the procedure?
I'm laughing because this is going to be really cruel. And we just realized that. Yeah, I'll let
Oh.
Sarah take it away though.
I mean, the jump point that I had to kind of start bringing all of these color clues together
Mhm.
is that the nearest star cluster to us, we know in modern day, is the Hyades star cluster. And it's made from several different gas giants and a lot of different kinds of stars that actually in the naked eye, you can see it in the Taurus constellation at night. But what if there was some sort of ritual in which they're using all of these colored bodies in order to kind of plot the navigation to where the portal is opening to?
Mm.
And that it's referencing like star coordinates of like this red
Yeah.
giant or that
Yeah.
bright white star.
I'm super into that. That kind of generally explains away a lot of the sort of like colored individuals or people who have colorful skin clues. So the purple torso, for example. Um,
And if we treat it like coordinates, there was
mm,
the piece of paper we found with like next purple, then 3
which
orange.
then bone, whatever that means. Um, I like that a lot.
They had an answer for the then bone. It is poor handwriting. It actually says then home.
I'm into it. I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's a good way of explaining that little bit. I'm just going through the clues real quickly. So let's see here. Stars from another world, strange reaction when astrolabe attuned. That makes sense. The vision of the colors makes sense. The oh, the obviously the workers and their weird tattoos makes sense. Perhaps the unreadable script and pictographs is just a visual depiction of like the process here. Is kind of what we're thinking there. Because we do believe the portal is going to open up over Three Mills Island. Um, yeah, that is 6 clues accounted for in your theory. We still have the yellow glowing rocks that Ms. Adamsworth has access to and is using for different things. We don't know what exactly. We have the picture that repeats in the Almanac of the Hyades of a skeleton walking down a road paved with yellow bricks. Those two might be connected. I don't know. Also, when Elizabeth Cross was dropped off, it was lit from above by a shaft of golden light. She was the red victim. Again, a kind of yellow golden reference. Maybe those are all connected in some way. I don't know. But
I feel like the yellow brick road, so to speak, is the almost like a labyrinth, but the flight path to return to Hades through this portal.
oh, very intriguing indeed.
And
Oh,
the skeleton might tie in, even though I said the bone is poor handwriting, it means home.
it might also mean bone.
Right. It's sort of is one of those things that on an occult level it is both. That the skeleton houses your body and that is the home, but also symbolical. It's this means of mechanism, locomotion.
Intriguing. So that's all very interesting. I think we have to get our steps here, though. Like, what? I mean, maybe this speaks to the final step that you have to stop. These last clues do.
The Wizard of Oz, there's the little golden spiral starting out the path. And it might be
I
a
don't think the
matter
Wizard of
of
Oz has even been written yet.
right. But that's it will be written based on this. That the golden stones or the yellow glowing rocks that Miss Adamsworth has, these are the initial flagstones to start this path. And that if we can substitute like a fake brick that has been painted to look like one of these or rearrange
Yeah.
the order, we can throw off the route.
Oh, I see. So the yellow rocks are actually
Fool's
like
yellow brick road.
the entryway into the portal, so to speak. Like, so basically, you have to get the rocks and either get them, or you have to like uh, tamper with the situation some way. I'm into it. I think
Ben
it's
had a cool
intriguing.
Ben had a cool idea off camera about somehow that the connections between the yellow shaft of light that Elizabeth Cross was in and the glowing of the yellow rocks actually symbolized some sort of communication going on, that we
Hmm.
could maybe sever that.
Yeah. And maybe so that's interesting because then that means the sort of yellow stones are almost like a direct physical representation of this communication. It is a physical, like not just communication, but like it's an access point to the through the portal. It's an intriguing idea. So okay, I love all this. It's all very strange and weird, which is appropriate for this particular threat. I just need someone to say definitively what is the thing you're going to have to do to stop the ritual.
Maybe the so the golden light isn't just a uh how the Heides communicate with, it's like the start, like when you're pulling a gas motor and it starts to fire and then stops. Every time one of these colored bodies is in the right place, it starts the process, but it's not quite right yet, so
Oh,
it doesn't
interesting.
open into the portal. So these bodies need to be in the right places, like flagstones on a path. We just need to make sure that the next one doesn't get put where it needs to go.
Intriguing. So it could be a simple matter of like just scoping, like just doing a stakeout of Three Mills Island, because that's where all the other bodies were found, and preventing someone from being killed, essentially.
If these are all little false starts, do we have to make it a successful start that leads somewhere else? Because if they keep on doing these things where things are not quite in the right place, that type of thing, so the portal's not open, we need to make sure that a portal opens in order to make sure they can't do this for another 1,000 years,
So what you're
effectively.
saying is we let the portal open and then kill them on the other side.
I mean, this all
No,
might
that's
kind of
just
play out
dumb.
in the result of the roll too. Like if you were to get like a 10 plus, maybe stopping this is going to be really easy. If you get a 7 to 9, maybe you do have to let
Hmm.
the portal be opened up before you can stop it, right? Like that could have a bearing on this as well.
It
Um,
sounds like what we need to do is stop all of the pieces on this chessboard, kind of Three Mills Isle setting, from being positioned in a particular way. So it does kind of sound like a stakeout, in which we
yeah,
either
stake out
prevent
and
someone from being
you
killed
stop
or
the
like
final killing. Yeah, I think
hurl the
that's
body
probably
into
right.
the ocean so it's not in the right spot,
I
something.
love the idea of the golden light being like I love the analogy of the motor. Like, you pull it, it doesn't quite, get going. This is this is actually pretty solid. It's interesting. It's intriguing. Let's have a roll. It's going to be +1. Whoever wants to take it.
Ben do it with his all one dice
Yeah,
roller.
let's not April Fool ourselves twice in one game. I'll do it. I had the jump idea. Let's see how it goes. Okay, that is a 6. 7 total.
7 total. So basically, it's just going to be. I do like the idea of like you have to let them finish, like opening the portal and then close it. Essentially, there also could be some issues with the Star Beast with a 7. So just going to throw that out there as well. But the board is set. Let's keep going with our phase here. Well, now what is everyone going to do? Ms. Balakwa, you have a date, but Lady Florence, you do technically as well.
Yeah, I think Victoria and Lady Florence kind of need to decide which date they're going to go on, because I also feel like, from Lady Florence's perspective, that Victoria's going to be very interested in a seance
Oh, there's that too.
around
Yeah,
this
there's the
orchid
seance.
as well
There's
that's going on
the
tonight.
There's the botanist. There's the stuff at Three Mills Island. There are a lot of dance cards to pick from
Yep.
tonight.
One note before we go into the night phase, I want to do a vulnerable move with Jakob.
Oh, interesting. We can have that be at the very beginning of the night phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would like to do my cosmic passage move to roll with presence to see how my connection to the beast will help here.
Oh, intriguing. Yeah. Okay, well, we can do that at the beginning as well. Well, Ms. Blocker, what are you going to do today or tonight?
I mean, before she goes anywhere with anyone, she's going to be like inspecting their fingernails and underneath their collars and cuffs and everything to figure out if they've actually been possessed by the orchid or not. I go where Lady Florence goes in this particular case.
So the botanist or the seance?
Oh, I mean, I think Lady Florence is probably more interested in the botanist than the seance, but I think I do like come back and I'm sobering up a little bit and like sort of like what was it? I got some kind of token from the shop keep, and I kind of like toss that to Victoria. I'm like, yeah, they're running seances over there in the shop. I thought you might be interested in it, but it sounds like we have a date at a separate location this evening.
If you wouldn't mind attending with me, I felt very uncomfortable the last time I was there, so it would be nice to have some company.
So
Well,
it sounds like we are pretty well sorted for the night phase then. You are going to be going to the botanist, both of you, eventually. Lady Florence wants to have a scene with Jakob first. We'll be really tight on time. And then, Jakob, what is your intention for tonight?
Yeah, I don't have a busy social calendar, unlike some people. Lacking another idea, part of me thinks I've got in my personal quarters a Venusian holy text that oddly I can read, and having met Jasad in person, part of me thinks to carry on with lessons with the lurker in the basement below the kitchen and read some Venusian holy text aloud. But I'm open to ideas.
Let's just see how that first scene goes with Lady Florence. Mr. Constantine, are you the only one going to Three Mills Island then?
Looks like.
Yeah, seems like
Oh,
it.
sorry. Are we going to do this Three Mills Island ambush thing tonight?
Dom's planning on it. Yep.
All right, I'll go along with you then. That's fine.
Very good. Okay. Let's talk about the unseen. Or actually, do we have any Janus masks that want to be resolved right now? Okay, then we'll do the unseen. I'll introduce it at least. Tonight's unseen is going to be Moonlit Mudlarking. This is line 11, second over from the right. Everyone does paint scene. Sarah can have prompt 2. Brian can have prompt 3. And Ben can have prompt 4. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and do the night phase. It's the night phase. What debris from industry, trade, or home life is found washed up on the mud banks of the Thames? What does it tell us about the city?
There's just piles and piles of like an old design of a jacquard, like a fabric, just reams and reams of this, and it was really popular until the queen said, I don't really love that. And so there had been this big stockpile of it. So like partly what everyone is sifting through are these old things that were in trend, in fashion, before Queen Victoria decided that they were not.
As people kind of like sift through the silt, the bottom of the Thames, you'll be able to pull up tin can after tin can of slightly mildewed labels of Cadbury's Cocoa Essence or Puppy's Peaches or whatever. But it does seem that the industry has just continued to boom, but therefore all of the cast-offs end up at the bottom of the river.
The city's wealthy are upgrading other aspects of their interior design too, and with no interest in donating or no resources for ethical disposal, a lot of it just ends up in the Thames. And on the shore, there is an oval mirror in an elegantly carved and painted frame that stares up at the night sky, reflecting the red of the sun's last light as the stars appear.
Setting up for the echo and the night early, huh?
Subtle, wasn't it?
Yeah. There are also just an enormous number of shoes that have been worn down by walking, so that the soles have holes in them. You can feel the stones under your feet as you walk if you don't dispose of those shoes.
I believe it is probably typical for all of you to have a little nap before heading out for a long night of monster hunting. And while you are all having your little doze, you dream of the vampire currently being stored in your basement. One of two, I'll note. This is the one that's pinned to a wall presently. Julius looks at all of you in your dream and says, "Oh, Hargrave House, don't think that just because I'm here trapped that I cannot cause trouble for you. I am over 1,000 years old. It is a lot of time to figure things out, to come up with new tricks, new weapons, new lines of defense. A certain specialty of mine in my old life. Since Hargrave House is so interested in botany as of late, something that, in my particular condition, one doesn't get to enjoy the fruits of too often. Let us speak of plants. Every gardener will tell you that in order for the bulb to be healthy, you must clean out the rot in the roots. And what you have allowed to settle into the roots of Hargrave House is not good for you. I am a conduit, and I am here to deliver a message to you. And Julius changes in the dream to be another man pinned to a wall, a man you don't recognize. He has a stained waistcoat, soiled gloves. He's attached to a wall that looks like one of those kind of like mossy art installations, you know. There are plants and tendrils holding him in place. Indeed, plants and tendrils work their way up through his skin, through his eyes, and he babbles. As our petals unfurl, we rejoice in our new form, knowing the seeds of a new awakening germinate in the rich soil of decaying dreams, for nothing truly dies when all is animated by the same sparkling void, each one branching out to touch the light, the source, the true path that is ever onward through the endless shimmering green. As you are all roused and come downstairs, you see that the emerald orchid has taken hold throughout Hargrave House. Green draped everywhere. Sarah. Back on the Thames, two youths come to blows over a case of whiskey with a couple of bottles still intact. As they push and shove in the slimy mud, how do we know this fight is about more than just the find?
These two boys are hurling insults back and forth. The no, it's mine quickly turns into your mother's a cheap whore, your father's a drunken fool, and you can tell that they have been either neighbors or living very close quarters like brothers. And it is about every wrong that they have. This is mine. This is where I will win. But everything that comes out of their mouths is extremely personal and cutting.
Before you have time to even realize what's going on in Hargrave House, you start to hear the smashing of glass all around. Something is breaking in through every orifice in the house. Julius is laughing from down below. You can hear his laughter coming up from down below. What do you all do?
God damn it, is Julius still alive?
I don't think he's been alive for a long time, but
I mean, ambulatory Jakob.
pinned to the wall like a butterfly, a curio, seeking reform. I think there's a chance that he can be reformed still.
Jakob, you and I are going to have a very long, very uncomfortable chat when this is over.
While everyone else is debating about this, Lady Florence is just pacing around and grabbing like wooden stakes and just everything that we have that would kill a vampire. And maybe even just handing it to people as they're debating it.
No
Dom
vampires
will-
tonight. You look through the windows in the square and you see emerald eyes staring at you through the glass.
A pair or lots and lots
Many,
of emerald eyes? Okay. All right.
many emerald eyes staring
Victoria
at you through the
got a
glass.
whiff. Victoria got a whiff of this when she was at the gardens, and so you can kind of see her own smoky black tendrils start to echo from her collar and sleeves as she starts to get put on edge and prepare.
Julius continues to laugh from down below, his voice carrying all the way up. I've called them here, lured them here. I can send them back. I can break the connection. All you have to do is release me from this place.
Can someone please shut him up?
Dom will smile and say gladly. And he's going to stalk toward the basement.
Indeed, indeed. Brian, back at the Thames, an older woman picks through the mud, lost in her own world. She does not seem to focus on items of monetary value. What do we see her collect?
Anything shiny and green, bits of glass bottles that are kind of broken, worn down, buttons. What else is shiny and green? Little, even like odd little bits of wet seaweed that kind of kelp that dries out by the time she gets it home.
Mr. Constantine, when you go towards the kitchen, there are already a number of, how should we call them, pollinated gardeners in the back. They have glowing green eyes. These are the ones that are pretty far gone. You can see the tendrils like on their body, creeping up from out of their clothes and things. They are armed with spades and rakes and other things, and they are just coming at you. What do you do?
Well, I have a sling designed to throw stone darts. And I think he would just start slinging stone darts at foreheads.
Sounds good to me. This is going to be the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I'll get overwhelmed.
Indeed, indeed. Go ahead and roll with vitality.
14.
14. Very good. I will give you the bonus of getting a direct line to Julius after this is over. We'll come back to your narration in a bit. Ms. Balakwa, there's a secondary problem here. The orchid is letting off little seedlings that are floating in the air and whirling down. And as they land on your skin, they're trying to burrow in. What do you do?
Erupt in smoke. As a beekeeper tries to flog a hive, I would like to use my rights of salt and smoke and fill this place. And attempt to fog out both the plants and everything else, but also perhaps bar them from this place.
I like it. I think this is going to be... I'm going to put you at disadvantage because I think the seedlings want you especially, most beloved. Please go ahead and roll with, I think it's sensitivity on that, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. My sensitivity is now a +3.
But disadvantage.
Oh, the disadvantage can't get much worse than that. No, that's a 3 + 3 is 6.
Oh, not great.
Yep.
Lady Florence, you're aware of the problem first, right away. The seedlings are falling on Ms. Balakwa, and they are taking root. You can see the tendrils spreading through Ms. Balakwa's skin like emerald green veins, coursing through her skin, through her flesh, covering her eyes, turning the eyes into the emerald. And now the Emerald Orchid has the power of Ms. Balakwa's dark entities and magic, in addition to all the other things it can do, unless Ms. Balakwa puts on a Janus mask.
Yes, please.
Very good. You have at your disposal the one from the actual threat still, I believe. Let me see here. I think there's one. Yeah, the Mask of the Emerald. That is an option. Otherwise, you can mark from your own.
If no one minds, I would love to mark the mask on the threat.
With that one marked, each hunter will have to narrate a flashback to a time when they experienced freedom from the confines of their body and mind. Think on it. That bumps your roll up to a 7. So instead, you get a benefit, but you have to also take a complication from your list. What do you choose?
Oh, that's a real good question. Give me just a
Be thinking on it. Jakob, you've got a group of infected gardeners grabbing at you, and they're not just gardeners, not even dressed like gardeners. They're just like normal people who are infected by the orchid. They've bust out of a parlor and they're pawing and grabbing. What do you do?
Well, I've broken the kitchen floor in here before. I feel like I might need to bust up the house a little bit more. Can I call in this sort of Thantis indoors, calling lightning from the sky?
There's plenty of windows, so yeah, maybe maybe a little sideways arc.
Yeah. I think I'll do that. Some sort of Thantis, try and just obliterate things.
Yeah, I love it.
Set the house on fire.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Let's read the Sword of Thanatos, which calls lightning from the sky. First of all, tell me, how does the atmosphere change in the sword's presence?
Well, the one time I've used this before was when I was mugged by a bunch of children. I think here kind of indoors, the gas lights arc in a like an almost lateral way, like the flames kind of shoot sideways towards the windows. And then the windows themselves kind of vibrate before they crack open, and then the lightning comes through, connecting into those gas arcs, and then
Nice. I like it. This is going to be the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if this goes poorly?
burn Hargrave House to the ground.
Yes, it is worse than that. I think that you create a storm that spreads the seeds even further across the
nice.
city. Go ahead and roll with vitality, actually. Yeah.
All right. That is an 8. I've rolled a 6 in the dice every time today.
Intriguing. It's going to work. I do think you're not going to burn Hargrave House down to the ground, but you are going to start a fire. Be thinking about what your scene looks like to get rid of these attackers. Lady Florence, a somewhat different situation for you, Lady Florence.
Ooh, fancy.
You see out the window some of the infected people are trying to get into the Chimera as well. What do you do?
Laugh.
You just let them.
I don't know. I have been wondering if I think Lady Florence has been wondering if there's some way to leverage Flag as another person who is close to Jasad, but obviously there needs to be leverage there.
Well, mechanically,
in order
officially, he's a servant of Jasad, but yeah.
Right. So to turn him would be difficult.
But not impossible.
But not impossible. And this provides opportunity. And so maybe I do head over there.
Indeed, I think you'll
yeah.
realize that they're fighting back because there's like a gunshot from one of the windows that kills one of the people. So yeah, if you want to go over and help, I think that's great. You'll see Flag and a couple of the sailors from Chimera at the window. And when Flag sees that you're armed, he actually gets like a surge of queen and country, and he like salutes you. And what do you do?
I shout up to him and just say, we'll start by saying like, rough night, isn't it?
He says, indeed it is, he calls out as he blasts another one through the head. He says, perhaps we let our little rivalry set to the side for the remainder of the evening.
As like lightning shoots down on Hargrave House and a fire starts, Lady Florence like looks over her shoulder and then shouts back up and says, I think that we have everything under control over at Hargrave. Can I help you out in defending the Chimera?
Indeed. He gives you a hurrah, and I like this. We'll pick up the scene in a bit. Let's go back to our final stop at the Thames. Ben, several bedraggled children poke a bloated corpse with sticks. Thunder and lightning in the background. Those who do not double over retching rifle through the waterlogged effects. What last traces of this person's life or death do they run off with?
The children poking the poor dead woman with the stick managed to dislodge the small purse she had wedged under her arm. And as they poke and try and free the lid, a brooch of green vine and flower pattern falls out. There's a small squabble over it, the three children wrestling for who gets to take it home before the victor emerges, and she runs off into the night with this held tightly in her palm.
Bravo. We're going to start with Jakob. Jakob, describe how you defeat the ones that are attacking you, and indeed how you light the house on fire.
I've got an idea here. So I don't necessarily need to check a mask. However, if I do check a mask,
it'll prevent the fire part of it.
Right. And so bear with me, because I think that it makes decent plot sense in a way. If I check the mask, I will unlock the Vault of the Eternal Champion, Othavia.
Mm.
And one of the things there is your breath is like gale force winds.
Oh, I like that. That's fun.
And I've been trying
Yeah.
to find like how am I going to learn that I'm fast as a steam train or strong as 10 men or whatever?
You
like,
blow the fire out.
Right. And that's my thought is like, so to be like, and then like,
yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So I think it's for plot reasons sort of almost worth checking the mask to then
I love it. Yeah, it's a great use
eliminate
of the
the
Janus
fire.
mask. Yeah.
All
give
right,
me the whole
I
give me the whole
will-
scene. Your chance to be a star.
Got it. So in that, I mentioned how Hargrave House feels rather like home, and then there's this like, oh, Lady Florence is going to be so upset with me. And then kind of frantically running around like trying to throw things onto fire, like maybe punch one of these little green zombie men if it gets too close to me. Sort of still staggering around, half immolated. But then I realized that if I blow a little harder, I can actually extinguish the flames, and then I'm blowing and blowing, but also like tables and lamps and paintings are flying off the wall, like things are just tumbling, almost the way the furniture blew apart in that vision I had. And Clara, what's her last name? Wainwright? Yarborough. Clara Yarborough's tenement house. The furniture is just like tumbling away far beyond what seems normal for extinguishing flames, but it works. And so I just keep running around spot to spot.
Let's come to Ms.
Blowing out flames.
Balakwa and your separate problem, Ms. Balakwa, of stopping the seedlings. What happens here? What complication have you chosen?
I've decided that I'm going to take a condition.
Okay,
I
love
was
that.
dithering. So the seedlings burrowed into my skin, and I just I take a deep breath, and I, in pain, fall to my knees as I expel them from my body. And you can actually see them exploding out of my own flesh. And almost that like aerosolized blood is what's feeding my fog in order to push this emerald entity out of Hargrave House and ban it from being ever present in this space ever again.
I love it. I do owe you a condition, though.
Mm-hmm.
One seedling manages to burrow just deep enough.
Had a feeling. This is why it took me so long to decide.
Lady Florence, I think the scene has progressed to be you and Admiral Flagg back to back in Belgravia, in the square where all your mansions are, your respective mansions are, like, punching, shooting, blasting, there's a ruckus as the police are responding to this, there's a whole thing going on. And I want a night move from you. I'm going to say that you get advantage on the roll because of fighting with Flag. So what are you afraid is going to happen if you lose control of the situation?
I mean that all of the houses on the square will be taken over. We are the last line of defense.
And the two of you will be killed as well, is how it's worse. Roll with vitality at advantage.
Oh, and then one more. Just to see. Okay, so it is a 10. It's a 12 then.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. I have to give you a bonus. Let me think. I think the bonus is going to be that in the minds of Scotland Yard, this incident tonight gets connected to the incident at the bowling alley. And because your home was attacked, you are no longer implicated in that. And so you'll get to clear that condition.
Got it. Cool.
But give me the scene. You and Admiral Flagg doing your thing.
Yeah. We are fighting these things back. And at some point, I pull out the bottle of, oh, what was that called? Dr. Rogan's elixir for men, which is effectively just kerosene. And I stuff I don't know, some kind of like handkerchief that I have into it. I'm making a Molotov cocktail, and I light a cigarette and light the thing and just kind of wink at Flag and throw this into the mob of gardeners, and everything just explodes in yeah, a blaze of Dr. Rogan.
I love it. Dom, two parts. First part, how do you get past these guys?
I think Dom will start just walking through the kitchen, kind of John Wick style, pulling back the sling and flinging these darts at the heads of the intruders. And he's clearly getting frustrated. And so when the slugger runs into the kitchen, he's going to toss the sling toward him and say, "Hold them off. I have business downstairs."
Nice. The slugger will start to do his thing on these, send him flying. You manage to quickly get down, quickly get to Julius. He is there. He's still laughing. That's probably why you can find him so easily in the tunnels. And he sees you and he's like, "Oh, you're not who I thought was going to come down here."
No quip this time. I think Dom will just approach, draw his knives, and say, "I would have left them for you if you'd asked."
Before you can strike him dead, he will try to stay your hand by saying, "I know where the beast is."
That will give Dom pause, and then he'll say, "I can find him without you."
Describe Julius's end.
The silver edges to his blades are specifically meant for werewolves, but vampires aren't particularly fond either. And as Dom turns the blades in his hand to one on each side, like almost a pair of scissors, he looks away from Julius's face before just a clean, quick decapitation.
That concludes the night phase. Everyone will owe the Mask of the Emerald. Some of you probably have other Janus Mask prompts to do. Let's take a 3-minute break just so you can have a minute to reset and think about those things, and then we'll come back and do the dawn. Before we get too deep into the night phase, I do want to say, Dom, I would like for you to mark an X on your hunt for the way you dispatched Julius. How are you getting closer to finding the beast? Maybe it's very direct.
Knowing that Julius knew will give him some leads. He knows maybe he can find his way to Julius's nest.
Indeed. Let's do dawn questions to start. You all did answer a capital Q question, so everyone's getting credit for that. Did not resolve the threat, though. Apologies for that. Let's go on to Echoes in the Night. That probably didn't get many of those either, but Lady Florence, did you get one?
No.
We know Dom did, so go ahead and get yours, Ben. Ms. Valakwa, did you get one?
My dark tendrils were echoing the green ones quietly.
I'll take it. Yeah, that's good. Jakob.
I was aiming for the gathering of green things from the river.
Oh, sure.
Pretty
Yeah, I'll
simple.
take it. Yeah, I like it. Lady Florence, did you leverage your societal status or social status to get the upper hand?
I mean, potentially the conversation with Pembroke.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
about,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I don't think you had a face-to-face with Jazad, though, so that is not. You did have a back-to-back with the former mastermind, however, but there's no XP for that. Ms. Blackwell, did you perform a ritual? Yes, you did. Did you make love to a human in order to forget the darkness? Okay. And Mr. Constantine, did you tell someone why their plans were poorly made?
It's what I was going for. We're telling Julius that they could have been a partnership.
Oh, I'll take it. Yeah, I also thought the way you chastised Jakob kind of fell in that as well. Did you taste someone or something else's blood? Yes, you definitely did. Jakob, did you quietly but visibly defer to the wishes of another hunter despite your misgivings?
Well, I knew Dom was going after Julius. Should I visibly defer, though? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to really make a decision, given the circumstances the house was in. However, did you go on and on about your bucolic life back home?
Did I? I think so.
Very well. Let's keep going. Mark New Dawn questions if you wish. Rearrange your 5 vaults of Tarthor if you wish, Jakob. And now Janus Mask. Everyone owes Mask of the Emerald, and I think at least one of you has another one. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
Victoria spent so much of her young life completely isolated from society, and during just yet another dinner with only her aunts for company and the servants not making eye contact, she began to explore just letting the dark entities pilot her body during these dinners so she could escape and go elsewhere. And she would then reach out into that expansive darkness and observe things that her young mind yet could not understand as the stars above.
Ivan, you mentioned last week that I wasn't kicked in the head, but got headbutted by a goat, and that knocked me back and effectively knocked me out. But what I saw in that moment of oblivion was sort of floating through space and getting gradually closer and closer to this red circle that I initially took to be Mars, and then as people were sort of slapping my cheeks trying to bring me to, I realized I was staring at the sun rather than Mars. I've got my other mask. Should I do that now too?
If you wish, go for it.
Sure. So this is the flashback to a time that I stood up for what's right, regardless of the consequences. So in Wales, there is a tradition called the Ceffyl Pren, which is sort of a community mob justice. It means wooden horse, and if somebody's transgressed in society, some of the male villagers will dress in women's clothing, blacken their face with soot, and then essentially mob this person to put them over like a wooden rail or a ladder or something like that and parade them around town to convince them to change their ways. And what happened was the neighbor's daughter was pregnant, and they were sure it was this other fellow, a different neighbor, Mr. Jones, we'll call him. And the Ceffyl Pren mob came to grab Mr. Jones and parade him around for getting this, causing this pregnancy out of wedlock. And I stepped forward and insisted that, I was freshly back from training in my law career and back visiting my family, and stepped in saying that, there's a different way of trying somebody, that it's not just this mob justice, that they need to have a trial with a jury and peers and evidence and things like that we can't do this anymore. And the mob kind of turned their anger on me instead, and insisted that I didn't understand the ways of Jan Padragach anymore, and that I was the one who needed to leave.
think Dom's mind goes back to fairly recently in the basement of the Crown and Anchor with the honey and the bear corpse. He's always been a Constantine and always had in the back of his mind his purpose and his reason for being given the life that he had. And in that basement, with the power of the bear and the slugger, all of it let him finally be free of that for just a moment, actually free of it. And that may be why he's so drawn to the slugger.
Then Lady Florence thinks about her time on Venus when she was with Jasad, and in the center of the Venusian capital city, there was this um, giant, like black obsidian, shiny. Is it stone? Is it metal? It's unclear. Circle in the center of the city, and the Venusians would stay away from it, almost repulsed by it, but they built up around it. And one night, Lady Florence is wandering the city and comes across this and approaches it. And as she approaches it, she hears like this loud humming. It's almost like screaming in her ears, but she's curious. She's an explorer. And so she continues on and steps, probably the first person she's ever seen get this close, much less stepping onto this black surface. And the second that her foot touches, her vision, it feels like she's removed from her body. There are swirls of color. It feels like she's moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, the speed of light, just swirls of color everywhere, completely removed from time and space. And when she comes to, she finds herself on the other side of Earth. She is in the bedroom of a Martian royal.
Fantastic. Is that it for Janus Mask? Then that concludes our session. Let's go to stars and wishes. And I'll start today. Fabulous session. So good. I really, really loved what everyone did today. The investigations were fun. The interactions with the side characters were fun. The leaning into the dangers, the way you all used your moves. It was just really, really good, the between play today. And everyone really, really like showed their character off in a cool way during the night phase, which was fun. And the Janus Mask stuff was really good too. So yeah, just stars all around for just really delivering what you're meant to do. And so yeah, my stars are kind of general, but very wholehearted. In terms of wishes, so I will tell you, I'm allowed to tell you, per the rules of the threat, that you only have 2 night phases left to sort out 3 Mills Island. So that is a thing that I will hope to see that you all can take care of, unless there are other lingering problems that you all should have dealt with already that come to rear their head. We shall see. So I'm curious to see if that works out. I'm curious to see if we have more interactions with the botanist, who's a very fun character to play. I'm curious if we will. I'm really interested to see when we're going to see these playbook specific threats too, the Coven and the Beast. Wouldn't it be wild if those got unleashed at the same time and you had like 5 active threats to deal with? That'd be nuts. Just Jizad laughing and resplendent while you all get eaten alive by 5 active threats. That could be fun. And yeah, just good times all around.
I don't mind going next. Specific stars. Right off the bat, Brian, you said the death of your laundry woman wasn't a pressing matter. I don't think that was an intentional pun, and every time you step in it like that just makes me giggle. So I loved that. Dom playing the newsboy reporter going out to get a story with the slugger was super funny visual for me. It's so delightful to have Lady Florence back in the mix. You getting to interact with all of these side characters, but then also finally bringing Flag back into the mix was really fun to see. I will echo Brian Starr from In Game, that cosmic mind visual, Jason, of breaking out into space as the bed goes flying off. Super evocative, lovely. Um, Brian, every time you pronounce the name of your hometown, Star, still can't do it. Welsh. I loved how insidious the green orchid was. Nothing, 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 a massive problem as we ignored it. I know that that's the mechanically what the between does, but this was a fun instance of it for sure. I look forward to wishes. I'm sure this can just be like a green little like vein and an orchid growing from above her ear or something. I just really, even right down to the mastermind clue of the Venusians having little crystals, like crystals they carry around for money. It's just these little evocative details seem to just feed so much of the creativity. So I look forward to this every week, and I enjoy playing with you all.
Hop in. I loved Miss Balakwa's fumigating the house with supernatural smoke and aerosolized blood. That was a really great, I don't know, just sensory image. Lady Florence and Admiral Flag back to back, and the blaze of Dr. Rogan's hair tonic. That had me in stitches. I loved the imagery though, and it was brief, but the sort of roommates argument over Julius at the start of the night phase was really fantastic. I'm glad that finally came to something. Been wanting it to play out somehow, so I'm glad it played out the way it did. What else? Oh, and Lady Florence passing out the stakes, like, putting them into our hands while we're arguing. That was really great too. So yeah, lots of good stuff.
Stars, just the session as a whole, it felt like we were all firing on all cylinders. It was great. Jason having we put so much work and thought into answering that question, and then taking away the opportunity to resolve it was cruel in the best way. And just the way it went, this siege on Hargrave House, I like it when things surprise our hunters like that. And also with the lead in of, does this place feel like home, and then an incursion into it. That was just great, a great moment. That star for that mask right at the end there, Mike. I just love everything that gets Lady Florence on her back foot, and every time we see her not quite as prepared as she usually is, and what that might mean is always fun. And also taking the opportunity to team up with Flag. I love seeing that. The scenes with Victoria and what's her name? Albertina. I love just the play between the two of them. It's always fun to see Victoria treat these people who are interested in her very poorly in charming ways. And yeah, Jakob is always a joy that Dom is definitely going to have strong words with over this. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next session very much.
And for me, I think this is kind of echoing what others have said, especially about the night phase. Just that contrast between day and night was like very stark, right? Like day was very kind of like casual investigation, socialization, that type of thing. And then night just like hit like a hammer. And but what I thought was like really cool about it is how each of the characters really got to showcase a lot of themselves in that, even though like we're on our back foot of sort of like, oh, this is not what we expected to have happen. That like we've got Victoria with the smoke, we've got Yaka but with the lightning and the fire and trying to like blow everything out, and Dom just like cool and collected, and that like classic like Dom like and into a decapitation is pretty fantastic, as well as the Flag and Lady Florence kind of like getting into it. So it was like a very like signature moment for all four characters, which I thought was really cool. Um
Yeah, I want
and
to echo that because like it was really cool, and like what I think was great about it was even though I took away the opportunity to resolve Three Mills Island, it became an opportunity to kind of like show the characters off, right? To kind of remind us and other people watching like what they're about, which I thought was really great.
um Yeah, and then Jason, I this is just echoing Ben's point of just like tossing that in at us very unexpectedly. And I don't know when you decided, but it felt like you had a really good poker face going into it as you were asking us all like what we wanted to do and the timing of things and all of that for the night phase. Um, so that made it extra fun when the surprise hit. And then Wishes is yeah, I'm really excited. There's a thing that's been plotted for a while that is going to start unraveling here, and I'm really excited for that to play out. I'm really excited for these new the Victoria and Dom as well, like your Coven, Beast, etc. stuff to play into all of this. I think I've been saying that for uh, sessions and sessions, and it's all getting closer. It's all coming to a head. Like you really feel the sort of like the crescendo here. So it's very exciting and fun.
I
Any
do want to
others?
add,
Okay.
oh, I do want to add just 2 or 3 more stars. Dominic's go-to move of the solution that is to behead the problem is a really fun character, like emote, I guess. So I've been enjoying that. Also, I felt like the way that Victoria's Day started with that mantelpiece of orchids and that kind of echoing into the night phase is just part of what makes the Between so much fun to play. Because not only as the keeper do you get to echo as players, but then we're feeding a lot of the story back to you again. And it's just that cyclical, self-referential kind of joy that I really do enjoy about the game.
Thank you. Any other stars or wishes? All right. Super fun session. Thank you all so much. Let's wave goodbye. Goodbye.